So, Jamey, you're making the case for Garrett Wilson as a breakout. Why don't you go ahead and make your case, and then I will give the devil's advocate.
It's every year, right? He's a breakout. Hopefully, this is the year that it finally happens. Obviously, he's going to lead this team in targets and probably by a significant margin. Last year, 154 targets, which was number 4 in the NFL, and he probably would have been better than that if there was no Davante Adams joining the team in the middle of the season, because we saw how the targets sort of shifted in Adams' direction. But I like the fact that he has a history with Justin Fields. The two were together at Ohio State, and I think that will matter. But mostly it's about the opportunity here. And, we keep, understandably so, but it's not just this situation, but we keep, sort of assigning the Ben Johnson offense to what's going to happen in Chicago. Well, this is a version of the Lions offense that's going to the Jets. And I know it's not the same passing game. It's not going to be the same level of production for Fields based on his history by any stretch. But when you look at the opportunity that Wilson has to play the Amon-Ra St. Brown role, the Jamison Williams role, the Sam Laporta role, and everything else under the sun for this team, he's going to have the opportunity here to just get a lot of volume, which I think is going to matter. So we saw Fields get solid, if not above average, great production, whatever you want to label it, with DJ Moore when those two were together in Chicago. I think the same thing will happen for Garrett Wilson, maybe to an even better level. So I'm excited about the opportunity for him and someone that you should look forward toward the back end of round 3.
Okay. Devil's advocate on Garrett Wilson. Wish you were going a little bit closer to the back end of round 3. I know you 32nd to 33rd might be a little bit rich for you, but it's not much. He always gets targets. 147 targets as a rookie. He's wide receiver 31 per game. 168 targets in his second season. He's wide receiver 33 per game in full PPR, 46th in non. 153 targets last year. He was wide receiver 19 per game, but that's still lower than what he's being drafted as, wide receiver 14 or 15. And I'm supposed to believe that Justin Fields is the cure. You're going to say he's had terrible quarterback play his whole career. Well, he's been on 2 teams that have actually thrown for 4,000 yards. He's been on 2 teams that have been top half of the league in gross passing yards per game. Touchdowns, on the other hand, not so good. He's been on teams that are 31st, 32nd, but last year, 6th. Jets threw the 6th most touchdowns last year. They threw the ball a ton. I'm supposed to believe that Justin Fields is the guy that's going to get Garrett Wilson, that's going to make him better. Garrett Wilson, by the way, does not do well on deep balls in his career. He has one of the lowest catch rates in the NFL in the last 3 years since he's been in the league. Let's say among like 20th percentile in catch rate on passes of 20 or more air yards. That needs to change. So I don't think anything's really changing for him. He has a quarterback that hasn't been good, that's going to throw a lot less than what we've seen from the Jets in previous seasons, where they've averaged 35 or more pass attempts each game. Yeah, he's going to get a ton of targets, but nothing is new. Nothing is new. The only way Garrett Wilson outperforms his ADP is if he has a Terry McLaurin-like season where he scores a ton of touchdowns, and then we'll be calling him a bust the next year because his touchdown rate's going to have to come down. So I don't see it. Drafting him as wide receiver 15 feels like drafting him at his ceiling. That is my devil's advocate prediction or case for Garrett Wilson. Dave, why don't you jump in? What do you think? Who is more compelling there?
I think you're both sort of right, but I lean a little bit toward you, Adam. I think he just kind of is what he is. If there is a difference, though, it's what he did before Davante Adams came to town last year. Averaged over 11 targets per game in his first 6 games. Had over 16 PPR points per game in his first 6 games. Can he do that with Justin Fields? No, I don't think so. I don't think he can. I don't think he'll see 11 targets per game. I don't think he'll get north of 15 PPR points per game. I think this is going to be a conservative offense. I do think he's going to lead them in targets. Wouldn't surprise me if he was around 9 targets per game. You take the whole 2024 season, that's what he averaged. He was about 9 targets per game, a little more than, I think he was close to 15 PPR points per game. You want to draft him to be around 14 and a half, 15 PPR points per game. I'm good with that. And I have a tough time finding a lot of wide receivers that fit into that bucket. When I look in that range of PPR points per game, I have a tough time finding a lot of receivers that I feel good about getting there. I think it's that volume. This is where I agree with Jamey. I think it's that volume that's going to carry Garrett Wilson to getting there.
Real quick, before we go back to Jamey, if you think he's going to average 14 and a half PPR fantasy points per game, put that into context. What round do you think 14 and a half PPR fantasy points per game should be drafted
right.
in?
So this is where I think where he's being drafted is about right. We're talking about, I don't think you're necessarily going to agree with it, but late round 3 into round 4, maybe a shade later, maybe call him top 50, but probably closer to that 3-4 turn is where somebody who's got the idea of being 14.5, but could be higher, is going to get drafted.
All right, Jamey, what'd you think of my case against Garrett Wilson, and why is this going to be the year that he actually turns all those targets into better fantasy production?
Well, I don't think you're wrong. I mean, there's a reason why he's not. I think if you were to say a player of his pedigree and opportunity, forget about everything else, that would probably push him into round 2. Just looking at what the opportunity is there for him. So I think, at least for me, like I'm not taking him where his ADP is. So I will not get Garrett Wilson in the early 30s. I just think the way, at least the drafts I've seen and the way I build my teams, like I'm not looking for him using that spot. I don't have him ranking that spot. So it's a matter of, first off, if he's scoring 14.5 points, that's a round 4 pick at best, if not round 5. So I don't think you want to be drafting that player. If that's your ceiling, then you're probably mistaking him for where he should be where he's going right now. I think the hope is, again, better offense in general. So while the quarterback play may be a little bit tough to buy into, the hope would be is there easier throws for him. He uses his athleticism. He does make some more plays down the field. Again, I hate to keep using this word hope, but this is what we're banking on for Garrett Wilson after all these years in the NFL at this point. And I think the Jets just sort of backed that up by giving him the contract that they gave him. So there's a lot of faith here. And I'll ask you the same thing when we were talking about Mason Taylor last week that you brought up. Who's the second best receiver right now for the Jets?
Brees Hall.
Yeah, that would be great, but I don't think
happened before. That's the point. Like 2 years ago, Brees Hall was second on the team in targets.
I don't see that happening.
3 years ago, Tyler Conklin was second on the team in targets. I might be skipping those, but
I think it's going to be the name that you keep bringing up every time there's a news item about the Jets. It's Josh Reynolds.
Yeah,
and that's the selling point for Garrett Wilson.
But what I'm saying is it's already been the case for him.
But it wasn't the case last year when it was year 3 for him, and now we're into year 4 where I think there's a hopefully a change coming. I mean,
all right.
You mentioned he's dealt with bad quarterback play before. Yes, he's dealt with bad quarterback play before. I hope that some of the things that Justin Fields has learned over the last couple of seasons will help him with their history together, lend itself to Garrett Wilson being a big contributor and north of the 14.5 points that he scored last year.
Yeah, he is going to throw less because, like I said, they've thrown 35 or more pass attempts per game, which is a lot. They've ranked 6th, 11th, and 5th in pass attempts per game in Garrett Wilson's career. Justin Fields, the games where he's played a 90% snap share or higher, he's averaged 27.1, 21, 30, and 27 pass attempts per game. So let's put him in the 27, 28 range in pass attempts per game. So that's going to be the challenge there for Garrett Wilson. I will say that you look at just those numbers on the deep balls, it's really discouraging because when I think of Garrett Wilson, that's what I think is missing for him. He just has not been a vertical threat. He's kind of like it feels like he's a slot receiver playing on the outside to me. Like he's a Chris Godwin, Amon-Ra St. Brown in the best case scenario, because he's not making big plays. However, I went back and I watched all of his targets on 20 air yards or more last year from Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers sucks. Like last year. Like wow. Garrett Wilson, I mean, I saw 3 or 4 plays where he just burned somebody. And he could have had a few hundred more, 200 more yards and 3 more touchdowns, maybe. Maybe it's a little high on the yard. He could have had much better stats. Now, those pass attempts are hard, right? Like people miss. But I don't know that it was all on Garrett Wilson. I think he's capable of more. I'm torn on him. That's why I brought him up. I see the arguments both ways, and we'll see how the audience apparently, or the fantasy community apparently buys into it, because I think 32nd is pretty rich.
Sure. It's the volume. That's why. It's because they see a guy who's clearly going to be the number 1 receiver on his team. Clearly is going to have a bunch of catches, and in full PPR, that's the recipe. You want that on your team.
I think the thing in your roster construction is, do you want this to be your number 1 receiver? So if you went running back and one of the tight ends, obviously the quarterback's going to come into play here with the most drafts, especially where we see Lamar Jackson's ADP at this point. Do you want this to be your number 1 receiver? And to me, this is sort of where, like, not the tier break, because we obviously went through a lot of tiers. He was in tier 4 or 5 for me. I don't remember exactly. Do you feel comfortable with Garrett Wilson as your number 1 receiver? And for me, the answer is no.
Yeah. So Just real quick, I mean, just thinking about, man, those Rodgers plays. But is there really that big of a difference between Garrett Wilson and DK Metcalf this year? They both should completely dominate their receiving cores and targets.
Okay.
They both are going to be on. I would say the Steelers are going to throw more than the Jets.
Maybe.
I put in the same ballpark, but I give
right. Right. It's going to be close.